Fred used to say, I don't know, Fred, but I've been hit in the head a lot of times by a hockey puck, so I'm not quite sure about that play.
That is Spanky Lavalliere to start Hold My Cutter. Mike Spanky Lavalliere, the former Buckle catcher who lives here in Braden, a special edition of Hold My Cutter. Spanky said, I think there are thousands and thousands of people that are tuned in now to Hold My Cutter. I'd like to jump on board here. And he decided, he's the first guest, by the way, who's provided us with stogies.
Oh, he's a legend.
Well,
an absolute legend.
This is my go-to.
The Olivia.
Everyday cigar. Oliva, yes.
Okay, the Oliva.
And,
you like the Latin.
I'm sorry.
It's a Series G, which is, like I said, a very fine cigar. My favorite is Monte Cristo number 2.
Oh yeah, the Monte Cristo.
But I don't break any laws. So for this, we've got the legal Stogs.
The Oliva from Spanky Lavalliere.
Yeah, let me. I want you to cough so fucking bad. Excuse me.
It's the first F-bomb Spanky will drop on this
and the last one.
Very special
I didn't know we started
of Hold My Cutter. Yeah, we started. You started out with your
you just
quoting the movie, whatever. Yeah.
What is it? Livio?
I called it Olivia.
Oliva.
I should have known
Sounds
that.
like a good catcher.
Yeah.
Spanky, how long have you lived in Bradenton?
Moved here from St. Pete. Moved from New Hampshire, St. Pete, 1985. And when I got traded to the Pirates in 87, my in-laws were snowbirding from New Hampshire to Bradenton and figured, well, you know what, let's just move to Bradenton. So I've been here since 1988.
That's unbelievable. 1988. And you hear people who have lived in one place for a long time. We hear it up in Pittsburgh, the Cranberry area, how much it's changed. There are just cow pastures. I mean, it has changed this area.
Well, especially out east.
Yeah.
The Lakewood Ranch was
is
basically just milk cow farms.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's, a thriving community, great golf courses, great restaurants, a little too far out from my liking.
Yeah.
But everything east of the interstate was basically palmetto bushes and cows. And now it's, some absolutely fabulous neighborhoods.
Spanky, we call those heifers, not cows. In Tennessee, just say it.
Well, don't you eat heifers? You milk cows.
Good point.
Okay.
Yeah, we call those slub busters.
Yeah, I majored in cow biology in college.
Did you?
No, absolutely not.
I
majored in baseball.
Yeah.
So two catchers walk into a bar and this is what you get.
This is what you're gonna get all day, baby.
You get McHenry and Lavalliere.
You knew I couldn't help it. I had to take it off the.
Yeah, I might do the same thing at some point.
Yeah,
actually,
I kind of feel cool with it.
I can't because it's got this beautiful catching glove. This is what the athletes use.
Oh, that's
this kind of glove.
Oh yeah. He looks at me like, "Hey, Greg, these are athletes.
Gloves.
Yeah.
These are athletes, Greg. You wouldn't understand.
I don't want to move.
You understand.
The athletes.
And you know what I love? You open that glove so nicely. Gave it a big pocket. That's what they want, right? You put the cigar in it. It's a beautiful display. That's all Michael Lavalliere right there.
Yeah, it's a concept that a lot of catchers don't get. Is get the ball inside the glove.
It usually helps.
That helps a lot.
It helps a lot. Yeah. Catching the ball is important.
And it's funny because nowadays, a lot of these guys use small gloves, 33-inch gloves. This is a 35-inch glove. That's what I used. And I had no issues getting the ball out. And I just figured, maybe I'm not as good as the other kids. I need a bigger glove. So that's what I used. And I never even thought about going to a smaller glove.
They didn't make a glove above 33.5 for a long time. It was an all-star guy for a long time. They discontinued that 35. They brought it back because all the receiving numbers and everything else. That's a game changer.
Oh, yeah. And it's one thing, if you have to be perfect all the time, and it's tough because, as a catcher, it's a long season. You got bumps, you got bruises, you take a beating mentally and physically. You got to babysit those knuckleheads on the mounds. So the last thing you want to do is have issues with your glove.
No doubt.
And if you've got something that's you're comfortable with, you can handle, just one less thing to check off. You don't have to worry about.
No question. No question.
By the way, if you're watching Hold My Cutter right now on YouTube, where the heck are these guys? We're actually doing a special edition of Hold My Cutter in Bradenton, Florida, right outside the what's this called? Is this called the McKechnie Clubhouse at Lecom Park? I believe it's.
I think it's the Greg Brown Clubhouse. No,
I don't think so.
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, not yet.
It should be.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Just a matter of time.
So anyway, we're here inside this tent area because
we're renaming things.
Yes, we are
nowadays in this country.
100%.
Everything's been renamed.
Gulf of
Yeah, that's
America,
right.
the Gulf of America.
Yeah, we're just along the Gulf of America, right back a few miles from us.
I wonder if they're going to change.
It's so true.
Yeah,
they got to change the street now. Gulf of Mexico Drive. It's got to be
right.
Gulf of America Drive.
That's right.
100%.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, you got to be in uniform.
Spanky,
you got to stay current. You got to stay current.
Stay current. How much do you pay attention to the current state of baseball, the Pirates, and specifically catchers? Do you ever watch games and concentrate? Because I know he does.
He just took a giant.
I know
deep
this big
breath.
sigh.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear how great baseball was back when you played. Please.
I am trying my best to say this in a way that
Politically correct.
doesn't sound like I'm an old disgruntled guy.
I think there's a balance to it. I really do.
You know what? Nowadays, I don't understand the catching that's going on right now. I used to help with some college kids around, and they started catching on me, and I couldn't teach them because I don't believe in it. But again, that's part of the old-fashioned part. I just don't see it, especially at the younger levels, being able to do that. The big leagues guys are a little more pinpoint. I get it. Okay. But at the lower levels, college, high school, little league, if you're on a knee, you're not doing any service.
Well, how do you
to your
ever build
team.
up strength?
Well, there's a lot
Endurance.
there's a lot of things, and I tell all my kids that whenever I was coaching, catching around here, be a kid, swim, ride your bike. You're not going to get any stronger with a Nintendo. You might have some badass thumps, but you know what? That ain't going to help your baseball.
Yeah.
But yeah, just be an athlete, play all the sports.
Yeah.
You develop different muscle groups, and to me, as a catcher, you need all of that.
All of them.
All of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to hear a debate.
Yeah.
You take the side of, you know what? I like one knee catchers, and Spanky can retort. So what's the great benefit of catching these days? And most of them do. Is there anybody that's not doing it now?
No, there's not. There's guys that transition into a normal stance, but no, nobody's really doing it any other way now. And to Spanky's point, I think it's a disservice because you watch these guys at the major league level and they are more pinpoint. They're getting paid to receive the ball better. They're able to manipulate because if me and you, I've been fortunate enough recently to catch bullpens and do this off a knee, we would have been different. I mean, you're a Gold Glover. I really believe I could have been that much better because it keeps me close to the ground, but I wouldn't stay there. And that's one thing I tell everybody is telling Brownie just today, we're watching somebody catch, not going to mention any names, they're tipping the pitches. And that's the biggest thing for me is I can see because they're vulnerable one way or the other, and they have the wrong knee down and they can't move to the left, they can't move to the right. So they'll give away a pitch. And especially at the college level, I do a lot of college stuff and I see these guys and they set up early and it's like, all right, here comes a fastball up. Here comes a breaking ball down. You can see the anxiety immediately because most of these guys don't have the rhythm and timing because that's what more than anything, folks, knee down or not, you can catch the knee down. I'm sure there's some pictures out to you as you're catching the ball, your knees falling down. That's being athletic. What these guys aren't understanding, they're getting stuck in unathletic positions. And that's where at the major league level, you can get away with it because they miss in like a 3 to 5 foot area. You got to, even in college, these guys are throwing 100 now. They'll miss 7 feet and you cannot get to that ball. So I could sit here and debate him. The analytics will show that these guys are blocking better, but you look at the size of the guys, like even on our team, outside of Henry Davis, everybody is 6'1" or taller, is a different animal. It helps them stay grounded and they can cover more space.
That's the point. Okay, so you were not that tall. So was that one of the reasons why it wouldn't have made sense for you anyway, right?
I always believe, that was an advantage
100%.
of anything.
Yeah.
Being 5'8"
Mhm.
is I fold up better than that guy that's 6'4".
Mm.
Yeah,
So,
he funnels the ball in differently.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things, the argument is, you're going to get pitches. Well, I can tell you this: if they ever go to that automated
They're
umpire,
screwed.
guess what? You don't have to make
Well,
anything.
it's one of the
look
reasons.
good.
It's one of the reasons they
And,
won't do it. They will
you
not
know,
go to the ABS system.
So
They're going to go to the challenge system in spring
Yep.
training this year.
Yep.
And then no doubt it'll be in baseball, Major League Baseball during the regular season next year, but it'll be just the challenge because they don't want to impact these catchers, the framing. How big, Spanky, when you played? I can't recall the framing stuff being so important.
Well, I can tell you this: the relationships
That was
between
more
catchers
important.
and umpires,
Yes,
was a huge factor.
So that really was more important than
because
anything.
now, if you were pulling pitches like the guys do now
Mm.
to make pitchers look better, you would hit
Ball.
160
Huh.
at the plate once you get up there.
yeah.
Because the umpires would tell you, you do that again, okay? Every pitch is going to be a ball.
Huh.
That you do that, and when you get up to the plate,
Ah.
it's not going to be 17 inches. It's going to be more
So
like
umpires actually say that
27
to you?
inches. Oh yeah,
Isn't that
they
wild?
weren't shy about
I
it.
got that as a rookie.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
my
They-
first start, I got four Ks. I struck out on the first 3 strikeouts. I couldn't have hit the ball with a boat paddle.
Uh-huh.
There's no shot. He's exactly right. And in your day, you talk about the guys in Atlanta and stuff like that. You couldn't hit those guys. They had a
Well,
32-inch
So,
plate.
okay, so the relationship with the catcher and the umpire was almost more important than all the framing stuff.
Much more so. I mean, and it was. I mean, I liked every pitch to make it look good. That was close. But what I'm seeing now is some pitches that aren't that close.
Yeah,
They're trying to make it look good,
Yeah.
and it looks silly.
yeah.
I mean, to me, it looks very silly
Hmm.
to try to manipulate a pitch that's 6 inches off to make it look like a strike. Did it back in my day. I mean, you might even have an umpire come around in front of home plate, dust it off, and give you the Dickens. Like, I don't know if anybody knows what the Dickens
Oh
is.
yeah, the
Well, you
Dickens.
get your ass chewed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
That's
so
a
I feel like a little
description.
boy.
Yeah. So it was like, okay,
The Dickens.
I will not do that. And that was a big part of catching
Yeah.
back in the day. It was, you know what? Keep the ball in front of you at all costs. Okay. And if you can make it look good, you do. But you got to catch the ball and keep it in front of you. That was a big thing back then.
Who's your favorite ump and your least favorite ump? Because you can
He-
say
he
this
used
now,
to look-
statute limitations. Now
Yeah.
you can go ahead and spill the beans.
And you used to look. That used to be the first thing you looked at. Who's
You know,
umpire
you
today?
know what?
Everybody used to do that, right,
There,
Spanky?
there were
Yeah.
some very
Didn't everybody? You go to the clubhouse the day you're playing or pitching. You take a look at who that home plate umpire was.
well, yeah, normally, if you had first game of the series.
yeah.
All right,
You know
what
the
crew do we
rotation.
have in?
Yeah, what's the crew?
And then I always liked catching for a pitcher's umpire.
Yeah.
Because for me, those 36, 40 at bats where I liked it, calling strikes versus at the plate, maybe 4 at bats where I had to have a big zone, and I had a big bat. I had a 35-inch bat, 33.
You
and a
also
half
swung a
ounces.
big bat too.
Yeah, and okay.
That almost
Hold
my cutter.
Yeah, that almost went over his head, by the
Yeah.
way. Which is
Well,
rare.
He's not used to hearing it.
Lavalliere usually gives it, doesn't
Hey,
take it very well.
We go well together.
Hey, that's not a big thing going over my head. I'm short. But but that's knowing that, I always preferred a pitcher's umpire. It was much more difficult, and I always maintain, no matter what league you're in, if you call more strikes than balls, you'll have less trouble with players and umpires and
That's well
fans.
said. That's well said.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you could, because you know what? When you call strikes, the game moves.
Yeah.
Kids swing the bats more. Everything about it is good.
That's why I hate
And-
the automated system, because it's going to be a lot more balls. A lot more.
Yeah, the automated system, I don't know how they can do it, because I mean, everything is flawed.
Yeah.
No,
They won't. It's not
and-
going to be full time automated.
No,
It's going to be
no.
a challenge system.
But it's going to be
Yeah.
interesting. Did you hear the story about Jason DeLay?
No.
You'll love this. 6 times in a row, challenged, 1 in a game. So he did 6 in a game.
and
and
one
I'll-
each challenge.
1 each challenge, 6 times.
Each call was
the umpire
overturned.
goes, "Will you please not do that again?"
Oh.
Because you got to think. I mean, you think about that sphincter, Spanky. It's it may be
yeah.
like this, and it's like, it's grabbing at one point. But like going back to his point, and I think the umpires and the relationship, I think the automated system when it came about for them to get judged, so they started getting graded. That was when I was in, and that's when it changed, and it changed everything. I went from a top 10 receiver to the bottom 10 in a heartbeat. So you really had no choice to change.
Yeah, the back in the day, the umpires weren't graded like they are now.
Yeah.
And you kind of could police the game,
Yes.
the way you needed to. If one of the hitters was a little mouthy, you get a little tap, move a little further outside.
Would you play into that? I
And-
would.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. I mean, Paul Runge, who was a very, very good umpire, you knew if someone was on his bad side, he'd tell you beforehand.
Really?
He'd say, look, line up outside and stay out there. And I remember we're in Los Angeles and Donnie Robinson's on the mound, my very good friend. And Donnie was a veteran guy, so he knew what was going on. So I line up probably about 3 inches outside. And Paul goes, further.
No way.
By the time he punches the
No
guy out,
way.
I'm a foot outside.
Oh my
And
gosh.
The next time up, the hitter goes, Paul, I get it. I'm sorry. It won't happen again.
That's the way it should be right there.
You know,
I'm
that's-
sorry.
And now you go back to normal.
yeah.
Wow.
But that's part of the game. And umpires back then were graded on how they kept the game going.
Mhm.
The flow
No,
of the
I
game,
didn't know that.
how they did stuff like
Oh.
that, and their relationships.
They didn't have a clock. They had an umpire
Yeah,
speeding up the game.
and there's a lot to be said, and I have trouble with the clock, especially in tight situations.
Yeah.
Where you got a younger kid out on the mound or a younger catcher, the game's still too fast.
It's speeding up, and then
And
they throw
now-
a pitch they
now-
don't want to throw.
Now you make a mistake.
Yep.
So that part I don't like. There's a few abusers, like there is in every sport.
Yeah.
Golf, they put them on the clock, etc. You know what? Take care of the abusers. Let everybody else play.
Yeah.
Hey, let the kids play, right?
Yeah.
Truth.
Well, I love
So
the
good.
clock. I think it's the greatest
I do
greatest
too.
invention since the Emancipation Proclamation.
And they're learning, but to his point, there was a couple times even Jones brought it up. The clock sped him up last year, and he threw a pitch he didn't want to throw.
Well, I mean,
and I thought he was
okay.
hurt.
Yeah.
I genuinely thought he was
Yeah.
hurt because he throws a ball of his own, ends up walking the guy. We lost one of those
Yeah,
games.
well, I mean, so be it.
I know,
Everybody has to
but
adjust.
it sucks when it happens to your team.
No, sure, of course it does. Were you truly, when the Pirates got you from the Cardinals on, I guess it was April 1st, 86?
87.
87.
87.
I was watching you then. I was in my crib.
It was,
I figured
It's
that.
like Spanky.
Yeah, shit in your pants like you do now.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
some things don't need to change.
of course, the Pirates got Van Slyke and Mike Dunn, the pitcher, in the Tony Pena deal, and got Lavalliere, as you mentioned. First full year as a Pirate, you win the Gold Glove. How
Whoops.
much hockey you played growing up in Massachusetts? Did it help you? You talked about a moment ago about playing all the sports, so it makes you more athletic. So in a way that did, but specifically as a catcher, did that help you at all?
I think if anything, strong legs.
Okay.
I wasn't a goalie. Those guys are nuts.
Uh-huh.
I mean, catching and goalie, two different things.
I wanna try it,
as
though.
a goalie, the guy in front of you
Yeah.
is trying to tip it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to hit it the other way
Yeah.
in baseball.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Huh.
we're much
Different.
So-
yeah.
much.
Wait.
more
They're trying to
different.
foul tip it.
No, that's what I'm saying. In hockey, they're trying to redirect it.
Redirect
So
the puck.
now
yeah.
you've got this puck
yeah.
that's this wide, and then it's going 100 miles an hour, and they're trying to deflect it, into you or past you or whatever.
Yeah.
Where with us, they're trying to hit it the other way.
Yeah, which
So,
is nice. Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
But I would say, most of, playing other sports, yes, you develop different muscle groups, but you also develop different mindsets. A hockey mindset is different from a baseball mindset, is different from a soccer mindset,
Mhm.
is different from a football mindset. And I like that idea of kids playing all these sports because now you get different things going on. In football, you lose your temper, you're gonna get a penalty. In baseball, you lose your temper, you're worthless. Golf, you're worthless. The only thing I loved about hockey, I could lose my temper and still be good.
Yeah, they want you to lose your temper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I was a good hockey player. I had a bad temper.
Some things never change.
I love the mindset thought, Brownie, right? Because
yeah.
even in the broadcast, you have to have a different mindset there. Because I'm a guy that gets sped up, and I have to learn how to slow down. Same thing I had in the game, but that mindset is a game changer. I think that's the separator to stay in the big leagues. Don't you think?
It really is. And that's they said it comes from different types of competition.
Mm.
You once you get involved and you sign your first professional contract, then it's a matter of really refining how you react to the game. And once you get that right mindset and make the proper reactions, that's whenever your athleticism is able to show through. Instead of thinking so much,
it's natural.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to ask both of you guys because you've seen a lot of games. Like, when do you see that manifest in guys in minor leagues? Because obviously it's going a lot faster for guys now. We saw prodigies get to the big leagues earlier, but like now they're rushing to the big leagues. And we saw last year Jackson Holiday, they brought him down. That was brilliant. Came back, different cat. But like, when or what do you guys look for? Like, you in the booth, you've been in the booth too, but like, what are you guys looking for when you're watching a guy and say something's shifting? And how long maybe does it take? Because I feel like I needed to fail more, and I would have been better served at points being in AAA, getting some understanding of who I am, and then coming back with a different mindset.
I mean, for me, it was I look at it a quiet, confident pace.
So everything started to slow down, you
So
think?
basically, yeah, it's where you're not so anxious, and you can tell a hitter when he's anxious. He is committing too soon. Where a guy, once he slows everything down, and then you've got that confidence that I can take this pitch and still be able to produce. Versus when you're younger, it's like, well, I just missed my cookie. Now I'm done.
Yeah, panic sets
I
in.
think that's a big part of it. And a lot of guys, you can read their faces and you can see the
their
tension.
eyes.
Well, you can see it
see
after
that
an at
tension.
bat. Boy, you can see him go back to the
Exactly.
dugout. You just see it. They say the deer in the headlight look, but
Yeah.
you can absolutely see it. It's amazing how these guys that struggle, these young guys, it does feel like it is 0-2 immediately when they get to the plate. And it's an old cliche again, but
Truth.
they are behind in the count all the time.
Well, and back in the day, your premium home run hitters, Rob Deere, would strike out 100 times.
Yeah.
Now everybody does.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
part's
I think
a
that's a
little bit
mindset.
different. Yeah, and it's a lot different. Where you don't see as much as the two-strike approach now, and that's the emphasis back when I played, which is a different emphasis, and you're compensated differently than when we were back then. So that part I understand. You're going to get paid, hit the ball out of the ballpark, and you're not going to be kind of
Rewarded.
penalized
Yeah.
for striking out.
So
Where back in the day, if you struck out too much and you didn't have any pop, you're gone.
But you really don't get rewarded for being a guy that moves when he was with the Pirates, a Jay Bell type. Not much of a reward for that type of baseball player these days, unless you're on a great team.
we had a cool conversation the other day about 10 more points on the batting average. You think about the on-base percentage, it puts us in a better category when it comes to offense, right? Just 10 more points on our batting average overall. How do you balance that? Because that's the one thing that's so hard to watch is there is guys chasing the arbitration number, right? If they have 5 more home runs, that may be 200, 300 grand. I mean, it's not a little bit of money. So how do you balance it out? Because if they maybe get 5 more hits instead of 10 more strikeouts, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what's driving a lot of what we see on offense now is, that paycheck.
That money.
And you know what?
But to win, you got to do both.
Yeah. And it just, that's one of the things, Clint, when he was manager here, I would help in spring training, and I saw situational hitting. I saw none of it, and I was absolutely flabbergasted. Yeah, your big guys with a lot of pop, you don't expect them to, roll the ball over, hit the ball second base, then move a runner, but you expected your little guys to be able to do that, and now you don't see that.
It's interesting though, Spanky, in that you're now hearing guys like Andrew McCutcheon quoted the other day. Pirate Fest said it, and it's not a great secret. The only way a team like the Pirates can win is to have players like that. Now you need some guys like Cruz to hit the ball in the ballpark. Otherwise, you better move guys.
Well, and PNC, I wouldn't call it a home run hitter's paradise,
especially for a righty.
That's gigantic, and in left and center is gigantic. I mean, right field looks fairly reachable, but it's not like some of these other little bandboxes. No. And to you go back to the days whenever I played with and against the Cardinals, St. Louis Busch Stadium was a very big ballpark, and they had their team. It was made of defense and speed, and they hit the ball on the ground, beat it out, stole bases, and they were custom built for that ballpark. Right. Where something, I'd like to see that a little bit more in the game.
Yeah, we were talking about the grass.
Yeah, we were talking about
we have some of the slowest grass in all of baseball. It's Kentucky bluegrass, and it's thick. And I said I wish they would change it, and they've been looking into it about changing it to Bermuda. But yeah, to your point, then you think about the pitching, you think about the defense. I kid you not. I bet if it went to Bermuda, it's 10 points on the batting average immediately. Because that's how much faster it is.
Well, that's back in the day at Jack Murphy Stadium. That was a very fast track. Mm-hmm. You'd go to, and I did this, Wrigley Field, especially early in the season. The grass was like 6 inches thick, and it'd be wet. And so in batting practice, I went and put a ball down behind the pitcher's mound and put a little grass on top.
I remember
of it,
you did this.
And didn't tell anybody.
Nobody knew.
And so I go out in about the fourth or fifth inning, and I go, and Frank Pulley is the second place umpire. I go, Frank, could you pick up that ball right there?
No.
And he looks at me and goes, what are you doing? I go, there's a ball there, and tell him to cut the grass. Because I mean, you couldn't hit the ball. You threw that grass, and sure enough, he comes over and picks it up, and I go, see, I did that. I mean, it just, it was something to prove a point. I mean, and this is nothing against Ryan Sandberg, but Ryan Sandberg at Wrigley Field was a much better defender than he was.
Yeah, everything's slower, right?
Slowed him down, slowed the ball down. He got to the balls.
Quite the range, but hey, again, it's
tailored to that team, though.
Exactly.
Yeah, going to help my second baseman.
That was the ballpark.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes.
Amen.
What's your favorite ballpark, by the way?
I loved Wrigley.
Did you?
I really loved Wrigley. It was
just the atmosphere.
Yeah, everything
the
about
batters. You love
it. It was the day games.
Day games.
Back in our day, you only knew what day it was. Was Sunday because it was a day game. Everything else was night games. Until you went to Wrigley, and then
you didn't know what day it was. Then
you had some day games.
Yeah,
and I mean that was just kind of cool. You'd see people of all types. You'd get suits. Coat and tie. Come in, rip off the tie. Grab an old style, chug it down.
Go to work.
Hot dog mustard all over your nice pressed button-up shirt.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, that was just cool as could be.
Yeah,
and then you had other folks that were just regular folks, just coming out to see a ball game in the afternoon.
And loyal fans.
Yeah, very. And it just the atmosphere was fabulous. Yeah. I like Camden Yards back in the day. I thought that they had great atmosphere also.
One of my favorites,
yeah. Baltimore. Hey, Spanky, we love checking guys' major league debuts. September 9th, 1984 in Montreal. You came in, I think, to catch, right, in the 10th inning.
Yeah, so back in the day at Olympic Stadium, the bullpens were like our bullpen, Visick bullpen, was beyond right field. And they had like a nice fishing house. That was the bullpen, right? And so we had like 6 different catchers. They called me up basically to catch in the bullpen. So I was like, great. But now we've gone through, Bo Diaz, Ozzie Virgil, John Walker.
I just mentioned that. Folks that don't hit with the Phillies, obviously.
Everybody and now they just pinch run for our last catcher. And I know it is. And I go, I'm in the game, right? And now I start getting really nervous. And the phone rings. And I'm going, it's the wrong number. So now it says, hey, you're catching, get in here. So now you have to run, and I had to run across their dugout to get to our dugout. Yeah. Okay. And I was shaking like a leaf.
Wait. You had to run
Oh,
So,
right field.
so from right field,
Yeah.
past
Oh, like
the
in
third
front of
base
their-
dugout.
They were in
yeah,
front of their
the-
dugout.
Go get him,
the first
Spanky!
base,
and I get timed against a turtle and lost. Okay, so it took a long time for me to get to the dugout. So I get there, and I'm shaky a little bit. This is my debut, and
10th
Jerry
inning, like, that's unbelievable.
and Jerry Kuzman
Oh.
comes over, and he's helping me put my shin guards
No
on.
way.
No.
And it was-
Then with
and-
the Phillies,
and
Kuzman,
he
the
goes,
pitcher.
"Kid, you'll be okay. You'll be okay."
Were you shaky a little
Oh,
bit?
yeah, I was really shaky.
Yeah.
You know, once I got to the field, I was okay. But the lead up
Yeah.
to that, it was just like, what's the deal? I started out the year in 1984 in Double-A as a backup catcher.
Wow.
So this was a
Wow.
Big jump for
this
you.
is a
Fast
huge,
track.
Yeah.
huge thing for me.
What was it like?
Who was the pitcher, by the way, that
Yeah.
you caught?
Larry Anderson.
Oh, my God.
And Larry Anderson, all he threw was sliders. And I wasn't quite sure, you know, I hadn't seen that much of really any of those guys. And so I put down a 1, he shook his head, you know, slider, yeah. 1, no, slider. So I just get put down slider. And he you know, backdoor, he'd use both sides.
Yeah.
And I just said, oh, there's no need for a 1 or a 2. It's just slider, 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 slider. And he gets out of the inning. We win the ball game.
oh, my
So I came in catching for the save.
So you got your first save.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
first save.
good for you.
Didn't your didn't you get an at bat that day too in the
Yeah,
11th inning?
it was. I was a little excited back then. I was a pull hitter with no power,
Back
and
then,
That
Dick,
didn't go.
nah,
well. No.
Dick Rapithine
yep.
was a sinker baller, and he throws me a little sinker outside, and I politely hit a 42
Politely.
hopper to the second baseman, and I'm not beating.
You were
out
trying to hit it in
anything.
the seats though.
Oh hell yeah! Oh yeah! I mean, hey, I go up there, you know, now batting like Lavalliere,
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
You're,
so
of course,
they-
you're in Montreal.
they
It's perfect. I
doll it
didn't even
up,
thought about that.
and now I'm going to make a,
Oh,
just a
and now
huge
the,
splash.
the man,
You were like 5'11" at that point.
Oh no!
the fans in Montreal love that. Here's batting Mike
I-
Lavalliere.
I get up to the plate, and my spikes never touched the
Oh, yeah.
AstroTurf, and get in there, and no game plan, no nothing. It was
Yeah.
just like, I'm just going to knock the piss out of this.
Wait, did you guys really wear spikes in the AstroTurf?
Oh yeah,
Oh, no wonder you guys had so many
yeah,
problems.
yeah. I've got 2 replaced
Yeah.
knees,
yeah.
but you know what?
Ouch.
I love hitting on it.
Oh
but,
yeah.
but as a taking the toll on your body, backs, knees,
Yeah, because
you
they
know,
just
it
threw
was
carpet down
really-
over cement.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
nuts.
it was Montreal was it was an older place too,
Yeah.
so and it was cold.
I heard everybody I've ever talked to that I didn't get to play Montreal. They loved it. Like they love the city, they love the town. It makes me wonder why baseball's not there anymore. Because I
You know
know
what?
that they would support it.
The fans at that time, I don't think appreciated the game.
Makes sense.
You know, and hockey is a much different game to watch.
Yeah.
I had a chance to go to the Forum in Montreal, a huge
That's
event.
crazy. I've been.
Saturday, everybody coat and tie.
Yeah.
The women dressed to the nines.
Really?
This is, I mean, an event, you know, where the baseball, you know, you'd have 5,000 people in an 80,000.
Although when they
place
won,
capacity.
when they were winning,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were one of the best
anything,
teams in the
yeah,
early
they-
90s,
Oh, they
right?
had,
when they had
great teams.
Cromartie and
They-
Dawson.
I mean,
and-
for me, they had the best scouting system that I ever saw
Carter.
while I was playing.
Yeah, some of the names, if you drop some of their
Yeah.
names in
yeah,
the early
Reigns.
Reigns and
Yeah.
Dawson, and I mean the pitching staff that they had. I mean, it was absolutely fabulous. They had a very, very good team.
How about your first big league start? About 12 days later. Do you remember?
it was,
Where
He's
it
playing the
was?
whole thing out in his mind.
Do you know where you were?
Yeah, we were at the vet.
No.
No, we
Of
were,
all places, Three River Stadium.
we were in Three River Stadium. Man, wow. Well,
And your first hit is off of?
Rick Roden.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get the ball back, and they can't even write on it because there's so many scuff marks and,
Oh, because of road and
and,
stuff.
and tack marks. They had to use a different ball. So the ball I have at home for my first hit isn't the real ball.
Of course,
They couldn't
not.
even write on it.
Yeah.
Tricky Ricky.
Did you
Yeah.
did you keep it though? Do you have that
Oh
ball?
yeah, yeah, I still
Yeah.
have it.
Looks
Yeah.
like the Sandlot ball.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
just
it-
messed up.
yeah, it's just like, you know, it looks like, you know, if you give your kids a ball and they go play catch with the dog and they bring it back, that's what it looked like.
Did you end up catching him at all later?
No,
You never did.
no, Tricky was
He was gone by
gone
then.
by the
Okay.
time I got
Tricky.
to,
I love it.
So that's 84. And now in April 1st, 1987, you're traded to the Pirates, but you had been traded from the Phillies to the Cardinals in 84, right?
Yeah, in the winter meetings in '84.
And what was that like?
And this was a mess because I had a very, very good year. Said I started off the year as the backup in AA. Got off to a very good start. Aaron Dalton was in AAA. He got hurt. They called me up rather than the number one guy because he was just not doing very well.
That's the one advantage being a backup.
And then I get to AAA. First time I got a chance to play every day. I ended up hitting like 320. I had like 5 or 6 homers. This in a month and a half. And I never hit many home runs. And the Cardinals, liked what they saw, made the trade. I ended up having knee surgery.
I didn't know that.
Just a little slight tear of the meniscus. And it was
part of the course.
Outpatient.
Wow.
I went in, got it done, left that day. And 2 days later, Bruce Sutter signed with the Braves. So I get traded for Jeff Lottie. That was 2 right-handers out of their bullpen. And so Whitey's, no, we can't do the trade. So we called it off because Lottie was going to be their closer. So they called off the trade. And once they called off the trade, the Phillies had already filled my spot on the roster. So I became a free agent.
Oh, it's wild.
And the Cardinals wanted me anyway.
Oh,
So I ended up signing with the Cardinals. Made a little extra money on it.
man. And you see, now you play for Whitey.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Whitey was extremely
Tough?
brilliant.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Brilliant
Yeah.
as a field general. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Explain that deeper. I want to hear more about that.
okay, you're talking about a guy that was 3 innings ahead of everybody. He handled his pitching staff, all of his moves that he made. It was just every time it was brilliant. He was not what you'd call a young guy's manager. He took care of his veteran guys. Really, not a whole lot of interaction, with the younger guys. So it was great to watch and to learn. But then whenever I get traded, over to Pittsburgh, then I came across another incredible field manager that was a player's manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I was so fortunate
Yeah.
to have back-to-back guys that were just 2 of the best.
Yeah, later you played for Gino Lamont, right? The White
Wow.
Sox. How about the pitching staff? By the way, in '86, were you a teammate with Clint Hurdle in '86?
Yes, I
Isn't
was.
that wild?
Yes, I was.
How
yeah.
about it?
Clint was he was our utility guy. Played first, played the outfield. He was our third catcher. He played
Jeez.
everywhere. And Clint was he was a little wilder back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by the time we got him here,
Yeah. In '84, the pitching staff for the Cardinals: Bob Forsch, Danny Cox, John Tudor, Tim Conroy, the Gateway High School product, who's a longtime scout, I think, with the Royals now. Todd Worrell was the closer. So that's the other thing too. You had some good pitching staffs over the years, didn't you?
yeah, the
That's
phenomenal.
because they're catching.
Well,
I got you.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But
well,
you always like to give a nod to the
Yeah, you
pitchers.
got it.
Yeah.
these were proven guys. Joaquin Andujar was there also, and these are good quality, talented guys that helped me with my development as calling games.
That's cool.
Of just kind of feeling out what they wanted to do and paying attention to it. That helped me out an awful lot. But that team is pitching, the defense and the speed were just incredible.
Did you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Spanky, like when you say they helped you kind of fill out what they wanted to do, go a little bit deeper because now it's complete. You talk about back in the day, you said that a couple times. That's one thing I miss. I miss guys tearing up their scouting report and going off field, especially off that guy. That's all that matters.
And that was the one thing that I still believe to this day is that guy on the mound is a different guy every time he takes the mound.
1,000%.
And so your scouting reports, the only thing I really ever wanted to know about the other team, I wanted to know his weaknesses, but is he hot or is he cold? So if your superstar on the other team was cold, we'd do different things
100%.
against them rather than try to get them out the same way. when he was on fire. Now you had to pay a little different attention. And I learned that a lot from Bob Forsh and Tudor, where they
That's
would
what
pitch.
they wanted to know.
They would pitch different guys different ways depending on situations and what they've been doing lately.
Yeah, love that.
So in terms of what you as a catcher, your priorities, in your mind, one of the first most important things is to know what. First of all, as a broadcaster,
yes,
you
swing and a miss.
You notice the amateur hasn't touched his mic.
Yeah.
Well,
you're not supposed to play with it.
First of all, anyhow, okay.
My name's Mike.
So now, so my question was,
My name's Mike.
when you prioritize as a catcher, and you were catching Spanky, most important to you was to know whether guys were hot or cold, first and foremost. There's so much stuff goes into your brain
for the opposing team. Yes.
Yeah.
But for my pitcher,
yeah,
what has he got that night? Because out of 35 starts, he's going to have probably 10 starts where he's got his best stuff. You don't have to vary too much. He's going to have 10 starts where he stinks, where you have to try to get him.
That's the hardest working night for a catcher, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, you're mentally exhausted
to get you through it. Get you through it.
Get him through fifth or sixth inning back in the day.
Yeah.
That was a job well done for me.
Yeah.
And it was the in between, those 15 starts in between where kind of good stuff, kind of not his best.
That's usually when they don't know either.
Yeah.
They're kind of,
and that's where, I needed to know and differentiate that and hopefully know early enough in the game to get the most out of it.
So you platooned when we were with the Pirates with Slot, and then I think Ron Karkovice when you were with the White Sox. What's that like when it's kind of a dual situation? Do you try? Do you guys both kind of combine and figure out how to catch certain pitchers, or do you put your own stamp on it? How's that work?
Yeah, it was pretty much an individual thing. I mean, you had the book on hitters. Donnie knew, the book. I knew the book, but how we handled the pitching staff was completely different.
It was.
And if you ask the pitchers, it's like, oh yeah, Spanky, gets me to do this, or Donnie got me to do this. Those are the different things that just make us all different.
Yeah, no doubt.
Instead of becoming robotic. And to me, that's the worst thing, because I would hit off of catchers. That would be, if I had a catcher that was just a blockhead, I kind of knew what was coming.
Huh.
I wish I would have knew that more. Like a lot of the Reds guys did that. And
would pay attention to what the catcher's
doing.
Yeah,
Votto cared more about what, like if I was catching or if Russell was catching, I never forget, he tapped me on the leg, said, "Today's my day." Never got a hit off me. It's 3 years into my career. He's never got a hit off me.
Votto never got a hit off.
No, he got a broken back single through the 4-hole, and he yelled at me. I said, "You can't get it like that. You can't get it like that." But I took pride in that too, because I always tried to see who was up there, and especially the big guys. But that's something in my career, because I didn't think about that. I wish I would have paid more attention, because a lot of those guys, like he's talking about blockheads, they put down what they can't hit. Like, I can't hit the breaking ball. I'm gonna throw the breaking ball down. Yeah,
it's pretty simple. And it's especially younger pitchers.
Yeah,
it was like 0-2 fastball up and in. And now I'd be diving out over the plate.
You knew what was coming
for that 1-2 pitch.
And that's kind of what analytics are doing now. It's making it very predictable. If you pay attention, you'll see a guy and you'll know, okay, here comes a heater up. It becomes to where that's where his style, and I believe my style, like I think about the personality first and then kind of rotate down. It matters so much more, because you will throw a wrinkle and then that guy's complete game plan goes out the window. And it's fun. Tell me it's not fun to see that guy's head go,
well, there were certain guys that I would sit on a certain pitch, and try to eliminate that for later on in the ball game. Dennis Martinez had a great curveball. Okay, so my first 2 at bats, I'd be looking for the curveball, and I would make a good swing at it. And if he didn't throw it, I'd do my best with 2 strikes. But I felt good enough about my game plan that I didn't mind hitting with 2 strikes. But if he threw me that hook, I was going to make a good pass at it, try to eliminate that for later on in the game, because that's one of his best pitches. Try to eliminate it.
Man, think about that. It's just that
Game within the game.
you hate to say it. Nobody. I'm sure the guys do that now, but
Not as much,
I know.
though,
I
yeah.
know. I hate to.
Well, and
suggest
you
it.
got to balance. Where I think that's where some of the hitters are lacking now. You balance, the analytics.
Yeah. Yep.
With your own brain.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing, because your eyes aren't lying to you.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
If you let that inside, now you can go ahead and balance that. We didn't have the analytics. We didn't have all of the computer stuff and printouts and stuff
Mhm.
that they have now, which is to me a great advantage.
Yeah.
But sometimes the great advantage can become your detriment.
Right.
When you pay too much attention, you become robotic.
So how did you get to the point where you went up and looked for that good breaking ball? Like, what made you come to that conclusion? Because it's not easy.
It was always against one of the better pitchers. It's like, well, heck, you're facing Nolan. Well, I've tried to eliminate his fastball, but
Good luck with that. Yeah.
You have to be realistic
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
But you're better starters. I would try. One guy maybe had a real good changeup. Let's sit on the change.
That's not easy, though. It's so hard.
No, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And it's to the point where they said you get your confidence level up and your patience level to where you're comfortable.
Okay.
Confidence and comfortability is a huge thing.
We've heard that before.
Oh yeah.
Mike Berger was talking about
Absolutely.
confidence and momentum.
Yeah.
That you get that comfortability, and then you become good, and then good turns into great. That's well said.
Spanky, did you have an inkling, by the way, of the trade to Pittsburgh? It was a 3-for-1 deal. Again, it was April 1st. Everybody thought it was an April Fool's joke. It's Tony Pena. Here you are. Tony Pena is like one of the most popular catchers in recent memory, and
he got his first hit, Three Rivers.
I know.
It's written in stone.
Well,
April Fool's Day, 1987. It was no joke when Tony Pena was traded. Pirate fans had lost one of their favorite players, and they knew little about Andy Van Slyke, and even less about Mike Lavalliere and Mike Dunn. But by season's end, they would know plenty. He may not have been the biggest name in the deal, but his stocky build reminded Pirate fans of a famous Buck backstop named Smokey Burgess. Mike Spanky Lavalliere earned a name for himself in '87 as he quietly hit 300 while catching in over 100 games.
It's there. Lavalliere guns him down. Lavalliere with a great release, and he got it right there.
His lightning-quick release caught many would-be base stealers dead in their tracks, as Lavalliere earned himself a 1987 Gold Glove Award.
Well, let's just say.
did you have an inkling that was coming?
No idea.
No idea
whatsoever. We had a B game that morning, and Steve Lake was the other catcher with the Cardinals. And Steve Lake caught all 9 innings. This is the end of spring training. There's only 2 catchers. He caught all 9 innings. So I'm out getting ready for the A game at Al Lang Stadium. Me and Andy, and we're going through, our running and getting ready. And Dave Ricketts comes in and says,
How many days
come
before
on, you're not playing.
How many days before the regular season is this?
Like 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Hello.
he goes, you're not playing. And I go,
Not
what do you
playing.
mean? Who's catching? Laker. Well, you know what? Nobody's catching a doubleheader.
Right, yeah.
Especially in spring training.
Yeah.
Now it's okay. So now Andy and I were sitting in the dugout
Van
at
Slyke.
Lang, and we're going, all right, we're traded, but okay. Well, there's only 2 places where we don't want to go. We don't want to go to Montreal, because of the, the whole thing up there, or Pittsburgh.
What? No way.
No, I have to admit it. I mean, they had just lost 100 games.
Yeah.
3 or 4 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
Getting over the drug trials.
Yeah.
All of this stuff. There's a lot of, and you're leaving
Yeah.
an absolute fabulous organization with the Cardinals, and then get called into the office. You've been traded to the Pirates, and it's just like, you want to talk about someone killing your pet snake. Oh boy, I was just like,
You would say
devastated.
pet snake,
Yeah.
not your little dog.
Yeah.
Your pet snake.
Yeah. So it's just like, well, and then, so the next day, me and Andy got to make a good impression. And so we leave St. Pete early, right? there's an accident on the Skyway. We got no cell phones. We can't call. We can't tell. So we come moseying in.
You're trying to
here.
get to Bradenton, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just over the
So we're-
Skyway
so we're-
Bridge.
We come moseying in about 11:30,
Just you and Van Slyke.
right?
Hey, we're here.
And I'm sure everybody's going, look at these two prima donna assholes.
Yeah.
Coming in when they want, right? Well, Leland comes right over. Yeah, you say, hey, we're glad to have you. We really wanted you. You want number 10. That was your number with the Phillies and Cardinals.
Oh, and
You want
Leland had
number
10.
10. And I look at it, I go, well, that's your number. He goes, no, you can have it. So now I'm going, is this guy nuts or is this a test? So I'm not going to take the manager's number. So what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
I says, no, I'll get another number. It's just a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was my first interaction with
what
Leland.
what do you think? What was it just a test? Do you think? What do you think?
I don't know.
You ever talk to him about it?
No.
I'd love to ask him.
No.
Yeah, I would too.
That'd be a great.
I think he
question.
genuinely.
I
gave
think
you
it was
the number.
genuine. I do.
He probably did.
It was only his second year, going into his second year as a
He
big
probably
league
did.
manager.
And so obviously don't have any black and gold. I've got red spikes. So Hooley, our clubhouse guy at the time, and nobody had my size. I had size, 4F. It's tiny feet. It's just
4F. Is that German?
So nobody's got my, and I'm not going to wear the
Call the
red
local
spikes.
little league, folks.
Yeah.
So Hooley takes like a 4-inch brush and house paint and paints
No
my spikes
way.
black,
That's awesome.
right?
Wow.
And so now the laces are all gooey, and I'm tightening my shoes. I got paint all over my
your fingers.
spikes. And about the third inning, it all wears off anyway. But it was like, yeah, welcome to Pittsburgh.
Are you in right away the next day?
Yeah,
you guys
that game. I started
the next
that game.
day.
Yeah, started
I
that
love
game.
that.
Leland's
really
driving
Driving across the
I
Skyway,
do,
Van
but-
Slyke and Lavalliere,
Yeah.
they walk in the clubhouse and they're in the game the next
Did
day.
you love that though?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I
no,
think
it's-
I think it's a statement. I really do.
So
Yeah,
what was it like though to replace a guy like Tony Pena? I mean, let's no secret how
So
popular
was he a part of
was.
that trade?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Tony was the
That's a
He was
cool
the
trade.
part of
The
the
main
trade.
guy.
Oh,
the
he was
main
the
guy,
trade.
yeah.
and Whitey got him mostly for the offense,
Mhm.
and that he didn't have to pinch run for him. He always had to pinch run for me. So that was Whitey's thought process. I did talk to Whitey about that later.
Oh wow.
He says your defense was fine.
Wow.
Nothing was wrong with that. But offensively, I thought we were a better ball club when we got a faster catcher.
Mm.
Had maybe a little bit more pop. So, but coming to Pittsburgh, and I got to ask that, how are you going to replace Tony?
Yeah.
So nobody's going to replace him. I'm me. I'm going to be me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best.
Well, let me ask you though, did you know how popular he was in Pittsburgh
Oh, yeah.
even before you got
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was forever. He was the only
the only thing-
representative
the only
to the
yeah,
All-Star
yeah,
team.
Yeah.
So he was, whatever.
Speaking of a guy that's
Six-time
covered his knee down.
All-Star.
Yeah. There's a knee down. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. He and Benito Santiago had their knees down, except when people are on base or if there was 2 strikes. Then they were in conventional
Oh, okay.
catching mode.
Uh,
But everybody goes, well, they caught with 1 knee down. Yes, they did, but
Not with two strikes.
only with
uh,
with less than 2 strikes and without anybody on base. So, but that's
that's a compromise. That's a good one.
I like that
yeah,
compromise.
yeah.
There's guys doing that now.
You know what that isn't that to
That
me
makes a little more sense
that
to
to
you.
me isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you're not developing bad habits with your receiving, then I've got no issues with it. I was always comfortable just doing what I did,
100%.
so I wasn't ever comfortable with on 1 knee. I didn't get comfortable to 1 knee until I was like 52 years old in fantasy camp when I couldn't get it to
Yeah,
my
let's
regular
just stay down
stance.
here. Yeah.
So how quickly did you find out that you became, because I think it was pretty quick, really a folk hero in Pittsburgh? It did not take long, without disrespecting Tony Pena, for them to forget him and fall in love with Mike Spanky
What's not to
Lavalliere.
love?
Well, you know what? I think just my work ethic.
Yep.
I had to play 100% balls to the wall every game because I always felt that I was the least talented guy physically at the ballpark that day
Hmm.
on the field.
Was
So
that
I
a
had
mindset, or did you
yeah,
really believe that?
And I believed that, yeah, I wasn't as talented, but I also thought that that was an advantage, that people wouldn't look at me like,
Well
oh,
said.
gee whiz, I need to bear down. I thought that was an advantage,
Mm.
and I played that as an advantage.
Yeah.
They
You know,
also
that-
loved your
that-
personality, though.
But
When
you
you
know
said
what?
the
And it's easy.
reporters and
It
stuff,
was
you were
easy
good
for
to
me
people.
because you know what?
You're a people person.
I'm a carry a lunch pail kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm a beer
that-
a shot guy.
I mean,
You know,
that's why you're
that's
made
what-
for Pittsburgh.
That's what Pittsburgh was all
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
You know, so that was, you know, something that, you know, if there was a match made in heaven,
Yes.
in baseball heaven, it was for me to go to Pittsburgh.
When you think about the most popular catchers over the several decades, Smokey Burgess, Sangy, Manny Sangy,
what a great
and
name.
Spanky.
Yeah.
Smokey, Sangy, Spanky, three of the most popular catchers in the
Like
history
a
of the Pirates.
Chevelle of catchers. This SSS.
So you go there, and in '87, your first full year of the Pirates, you win a Gold Glove.
Well, I'll tell you this, and not too many people remember this, but I obviously do. My first throw, it was the second game of the season. John Tudor started for the Cardinals, so Junior Ortiz
Of all
started.
things, you're playing against the Cardinals.
Right.
How wild
The
is that?
second game, okay, Danny Cox is throwing for them. I know Danny, I caught him, so I'm playing. Bob Kipper walks Vince Coleman to lead off the game. Now I'm going, oh,
Vince
crap.
Coleman.
I seen Vince wreak havoc, right?
Stolen
So
base.
Kip just barely moves. There goes Vince. I catch the ball, and Vince is almost already like
Dusting
dusting
himself
himself off. And I go, and I'm going to hold the ball, and my arm just doesn't stop. The ball comes out of my hand, and it goes, lands on the back of the mound, and rolls on the turf, and doesn't make second base.
Get out of here.
That was
Your
my
first throw.
That was my first
Threw a
throw
parachute.
as a Pirate.
Was
You
it
think, you think I heard any boos?
Oh,
So
Oh my
it
God.
was after
We
your
got you for Pena.
Oh, no.
right, right.
Are
And
you
so-
kidding
yeah.
me?
And then he goes to win a Gold Glove.
And so I end up, yeah. So it's not how you start; it's how you finish.
Oh, wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
Your first throw. I didn't realize that.
Oh God, you want to talk about, you know, wanting to have a shovel and dig a hole and jump in right there.
My gosh.
Oh, and
Yeah, first
I don't
Wow.
think I took my mask off. Even my first at bat, I was so embarrassed.
Unbelievable.
I think I went up to the plate with my mask on.
Unbelievable. So that's 87. You mentioned Kipper, Brian Fisher, Big Daddy, Rick Russell, Doug Drabick, part of that staff. Mike Dunn, who was part of that trade, you and Lavalliere, you and Van Slyke. And
What a
Dunn was
trade.
like the Sporting News Rookie of the Year that year, too. And then Jim Gott, your closer. 88. Talk about that 88 year.
Well, 88,
When did it happen?
88, we kind of
It was just the bad luck.
well, you know what? The Mets were fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, we really weren't as good as them, and we played good brand of baseball, played good defense. We threw strikes. We did a lot of good things, but we didn't have the horses to win that race. The Mets were stacked.
Yeah, they're too good.
And they had everything. You know, they were just that good. But we got a taste of what it's going to take to be good, and that was something that, you know, jumping off. We had a lot of after that season going into '89,
A lot of hope.
promise of, okay, now we've been together a few years here. You know, we're going to contend this year, and then we all
The
got
injuries.
hurt.
Well, who was the first that got hurt? Was you?
I think it was Sid.
Was that
Sid.
no,
Sid got
this
hurt
is
first.
89 or 88?
89.
89.
Because all the
Sid-
hope going into 89. Sid get
Yeah,
hurt
Sid
for the
get
first
hurt.
couple weeks, and then
Yeah.
not long after you get out.
Yeah, Sid and I had surgery the same day
Oh,
at Passavant Hospital.
Same
Yeah.
day.
high five in the hospital.
Well, yeah. I went up to visit him. He didn't take to the anesthesia as good as me because I'm pretty good at anesthesia. But so I went to try to pep him up a little bit, and I ended up missing a little over 3 months. And then Andy got hurt.
What was your
And then,
surgery?
I had a torn ACL and partially torn MCL.
3 months.
Who was it?
That's-
Who was it?
that's
Spanky, who was
nice.
it at the plate? What?
It was Rex Hudler.
That's right.
And to this day, if I see him, I'll kill him.
So it was.
Why's that?
So you think it was a dirty play?
It was a dirty play. Yeah, he
Oh.
came in diving knees to knees.
Oh,
It was not a slide.
Did he hit you on the side?
It was a takeout. No, hit me straight. I was in perfect position.
So that's why the
hit me
ACL went.
straight, and
It tore both the middle.
it went down, and my knee was like this. So like the bottom of my knee was.
That's
touching
not
the
good
ground.
if you're wondering. At
Yeah.
home. Yeah.
It was my bottom, my back of my knee was like touching the ground, and I was still up. So yeah, it was. Like,
what was the play,
yeah.
Spanky? What was the play? Describe what happened. Huddler's at second. Base hit. So where was the hit?
Base hit, I think it might have been to Andy.
To Andy.
In center, threw it home.
Mhm.
I catch it, go to make the tag, takes out my knee.
Gosh,
Is it like
And-
bang bang?
Yeah, and it ticked me off because the umpire called him safe. And
wow.
usually, if there's contact at home plate at all, your catcher's going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And Jim Quick was the umpire,
Jim Quick.
and I told him about that afterwards. I said, you know what? Every ball in the dirt, I will get out of the way, and you will wear that just because of that play. I was pissed.
Well, so now you come back,
Come back,
and now it's
In
90.
record time, by the way.
Yeah,
That's a
unbelievable
quick-
recovery.
Quick.
and
And then 90. Do you guys go into spring training? Think we got a really good shot here?
absolutely.
You do.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a continuation. File 89, it was just too many injuries for us to
Couldn't
contend.
overcome. Yeah.
And then it was just like, 90. All right, we're here. Made a couple more. Sid and Leland
Sid Thrift.
made a couple more acquisitions, and it's like, filled a couple holes. And then it was like, you know what? We got a good ball club here. And just, seeing 24 run out to left field every night made us a better team.
That was special, huh?
Yeah.
Greatest player you ever saw?
The best player ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None,
Yeah.
bar none.
From the
No.
gate. From the gate, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just unbelievable. It's a shame that, what's taking place.
Yeah.
It should be in the Hall of Fame. Hey, you know what? If everybody in the Hall of Fame was milk and cookies,
Mm.
okay, then I'd say he doesn't belong. There's a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame
Yeah.
that were,
Yeah.
red
Sure,
juice
Sure.
and amphetamines
Yeah.
in order to take the field.
Yeah.
What's a performance enhancing drug?
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
you know what? Barry didn't help himself being as caustic
Yes.
as he was to everybody.
Not that word.
That's good. That's
I
good.
did a lot of crossword puzzles.
Just before doing
Yeah.
the show, he did that. Yeah. To bone up.
Yeah.
Hey, so
Hey, I've got it here on my phone.
so Spanky, which is the best of the three division title teams? 90, 91, 92.
I want to say 91. We were probably the
Why?
best,
Why?
the best team. We had a taste in 90, and I think we were a little strong.
I like that word he uses, taste.
Get the taste.
Yeah, because you get that taste, you want more. It's like eating a Lay's potato chip. You can't just have one.
Yeah, yeah. I think 91. I think we were overall a better ball club. But you run into the Reds, and it just
That team was stacked.
and the Braves. I mean, you get the Braves and the Reds, and everybody was, everybody was good.
After in the NLCS in 92, when Walkie pitches that complete game and you're going down to Atlanta, but still down, do you guys confident at that point?
Yeah, I don't think it,
Because almost like you're unstoppable.
until Randy March called Sid safe. I knew we were going to win.
Well, he was safe, wasn't he?
No, he was
Really? Do you think if replay,
So whenever I do games for
Have you-
ESPN,
He was 100%.
and
have you broken it down, like looked at it, like Zabruder filmed it and looked at
there wasn't enough angles.
Oh.
It would be inconclusive.
Oh,
I had my tech guys with ESPN look at it,
Oh.
and it's inconclusive.
oh, wow.
But when you bent leg slide, your front foot is up in the air
100%.
because if it's down, you're going to catch a spike and break your ankle. Okay, Sid says he's safe. Umpire said he's safe. That's what the call was. But I still believe that I got that back leg
Huh.
before
It was
his
an
front leg
unbelievable
was
attempt.
able to
Yeah,
actually
he's a big guy.
hit home
So
plate.
It was a heck
he's
of a
leaning-
play by
yeah,
Lavalliere, too.
He's leaning back. That leg's going to go up. in a heartbeat.
What's really weird about sports and baseball in particular, when guys make great plays, unless the out is called, it's like forgotten.
100%.
But the play is it's an unbelievable catch and tag by Lavalliere. What do you think about the throw from Bonds? He
Well,
gets
you
criticized
know
so
what?
much for it.
Barry never possessed a great arm.
Yeah.
If there was any thing to his game that wasn't as good as everything else. It was his arm. It was
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
It was a very average arm. So, and everybody likes to put the blame on Barry. There's a lot of things in that ball game that we could have added on, a run here.
Never comes down to
run
that
there,
one play. It's so true.
So it's everybody looks at that one play because that was the end. But we had chances earlier in that ball game to win, win the game back then. You can win games in the third and fourth inning. It's not always the ninth. And so it's really unfair, to put the blame on Stan or Barry.
Well, because
or anybody.
Because
Yeah.
didn't Belinda was throwing some strikes that weren't being called, right?
Well, I had some issues with
Were you-
Randy Marsh.
Were you saying
And
stuff to Marsh, by the way?
Yeah, I
That-
was. And,
All polite though, right?
let's say it wasn't as polite. I wasn't one of those guys that would bury an umpire.
Yeah.
I was. a guy
But in the
that
heat of the moment of that
it's
critical
like,
game,
"So, Randy, that's a strike, and I may have had a adjective or two, besides that. It was a combination of a number of things that went wrong.
yeah.
And it just, now you can look back, it's like, wasn't meant to be. But you know what? It's just, I don't know if anything could have been changed
Mm.
or if anybody would have changed anything. It didn't work.
How tough was the clubhouse afterward?
Oh,
Guys literally crying.
I
You could hear the tears.
I don't
The
pretend.
care levels out high.
Oh my gosh, it was
I don't-
unbelievable. The devastation
I
was
don't pretend
the whole city
to,
Yeah.
to ever have been in that position. But if anybody's seen Saving Private Ryan
Oh.
at the end, whenever the tank is shooting everything and everything goes quiet and he can't hear anything, that's what it felt like.
Hmm.
It was a
That's
numbing,
silent.
It was a numbing feeling of,
Wow.
I can't believe this happened.
That's it. Yeah.
It was surreal. It really was. It was. Yeah, I didn't get pissed off until after.
Hmm.
I was so numb to start with, and it was.
I know
I
that.
mean,
feeling.
I didn't
It's a tough
watch-
feeling.
I didn't watch the replay for, I want to say, a good 15 years.
Really?
Couldn't
that
watch
long?
it.
Wow.
It was the lowest point of my career.
And then how about 93? How hard was that?
Yeah, it was
I
very.
mean, I know
difficult.
it didn't end well.
Well, you know what? Being released
Yeah.
on Easter Sunday.
No.
Yeah, it's a little bit. They were sending a message. I think I was the player rep,
Mm. Oh.
and I didn't
Oh.
have too many good things to say.
Ted,
about management
Ted Simmons was
at
the
that-
general
at
manager,
the
and he
time.
was
Because 93 is right before it all kicked off, right? Or when it was all kicking off?
93.
Yeah. With the strike and everything else.
It was 94. The
94
strike
was
came,
the
but-
strike.
But 93 was that
but
when
there,
it
was,
started?
there was rumbling going
was
on.
starting to
Yeah.
rumble?
Well, a lot of it was.
You guys were very outspoken
we,
then too.
we had lost, Bonilla. We had lost Bonds. We're losing guys, and they were misrepresenting their offers in public to Doug Drabeck. Dougie and I have been great
Oh,
friends.
we got to talk about the
And-
relationship. They have a cool
and
relationship.
so Dougie and I have been great friends.
And
So
Dougie's not
I
gonna say
knew
anything.
every little bit
Yeah.
of that negotiations and what the Pirates management was saying to the public was nowhere near what they were offering him. And Dougie he's much more of a professional than I am.
Mhm.
And I'm sticking up for my pitcher.
Yeah.
And I says,
100%.
this is crap.
Mm.
You're giving this guy a bad name. This guy wants nothing more than to stay here. And you're not
You're
even
making it
coming
look like he
close.
wants so much money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That he's greedy
Oh.
and he doesn't want to be in
Mm,
Pittsburgh.
mm.
And that's not fair.
And
to
that puts a
guy.
huge divide in that clubhouse.
Yeah.
Between
Yeah.
the front
So,
office.
so
to
I
them.
was outspoken about it. And I believe ultimately that's why they released me.
Well, something happened because they ended up paying like the balance of that contract too. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was something about that. It was a message.
What do you
So-
mean the balance of the contract?
I mean,
I had signed a 3-year deal and I played 1 year on that
They
deal.
released you.
And then the last 2 years, they basically ate it.
Yeah, they're definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely say
So that was, and it was very difficult.
Yeah.
Because I not only love the organization and but the city
Hmm.
and really I wanted to end my career as a Pirate. So it was very, very difficult. I was, just ripped at Ted Simmons, at Ted.
Yeah.
And I saw him about 3 years ago at Cardinal Fantasy Camp.
Had you spoken to
And
him
I
since?
hadn't talked to him since.
No kidding.
And he came to me, goes, "You probably want to kill me, don't you?"
Wow.
And I said, "You're absolutely right." And we had a chat. And
Was it productive?
And I found out what it was all about, and we hugged.
No kidding.
Yeah, I just
30 years later.
Yeah, and it was
That probably felt good, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was a burden, and it's anybody to have that kind of animosity towards somebody. It's not good.
Yeah,
it's not healthy.
So Simmons
And so
Simmons claims it was not
well
his doing.
Yeah, it was
There's more to
basically
it.
he was told.
Yeah.
And that's that was good enough for me.
Yeah.
And you know what? That was something that I wish I would have known and handled it better. But I was a bitter guy to Ted Simmons, and never saw him again until said about 3 years ago.
Well,
Wow.
not to stir anything up again, but it was still Simmons who misrepresented what Drabick wanted. There's no doubt about that. Simmons didn't have to do that.
Well, he
He didn't have to.
There was
Right?
There was a lot more than Ted was the fall guy, but there was a guy that was the president of the club, Mark Sauer, that was calling a lot of shots.
Yeah.
His last name says it all. Then
Yeah. So
it's making it sound.
that's if he wants to come down spring training, I'll put the gear on. We'll play at the plate. Mark, I want.
Well,
some
so I'm
redemption.
a Sauer fan. 'Cause Sauer hired me, so I can't say anything about Sauer. But anyway, so you go to the
Yeah.
White Sox now, and you play for Gene Lamont,
Yeah, that was great.
Your third great manager.
Gino was awesome.
who had
Different.
been the longtime coach of Jim
Yeah.
Leland's. Yeah.
Yeah,
So cool.
different temperament than Leland, but a great baseball mind. He was very quiet, and he didn't come across. He didn't get the credit for being the
Yeah.
baseball guy that he was.
Yeah.
Absolutely fabulous. He was very, very good. But again, his temperament.
Well, he wasn't
wasn't
he
that
wasn't as good
great.
with the media as they wanted him to be. You
Yeah.
know, I think, right, Spanky?
Yeah, and that was a very comfortable feeling.
Yeah.
But I was the backup catcher. Karko was the number one guy.
Karkovice.
So I played, once a week, once every couple of weeks, which was, I didn't like it, but it is what it was.
Yeah.
And I tried to do my best, to whenever I get in there, just be your best.
Yeah, try to win that ball game.
Yeah.
And you have a good baseball mind. A great baseball mind in my opinion. And I learned a lot from you as a young buck, and I continue to learn. But did you spend a lot of time with those guys as I took a lot of pride in trying to be around the Ray Searages of the world, the Jeff Bannisters, Clint Hurdles, and especially when I didn't play, I'd try to be as close to them as possible, hear kind of what's going on, play the game in my mind with them. I feel like you did a lot of that.
Well, that's, when I went over to the White Sox, I hadn't caught any of the guys, the talent. Jack McDowell, Alex Fernandez, Jason
Jeez.
Beret, Wilson Alvarez.
Holy
These
cow.
are just,
I
this
didn't
is
know
basically-
that.
Yeah.
This
Wow.
is the first time that I was able to, basically put a one down without crossing my fingers. Here you go. Give me your best fastball, because every one of those guys had legit
Man.
Like
cheese.
thunder, yeah.
Yeah. So but it was spent a lot of time back in the day. We spent a lot of time in the locker room together, talking before, after. And with the White Sox, we were cigar smokers. So before, after batting practice, we'd light up in the locker room, right? And then all of a sudden be like, infield 10 minutes. Crap! Put out your cigar.
Oh,
Go out, take infield.
isn't that a beautiful
Yeah.
thing?
So it was just and then after the game it was the same kind of thing, But I got to know, and I think that's a big part of it is your relationship with your pitching staff, because when those guys know that you care, they're going to give you everything.
100%.
And that's a big thing. If they think that you don't care and you're only thinking about, your stats, your offense, then they're going to kind of not give it the best.
Yeah, you're not getting the best out of it.
But I felt that, the next day in the paper, it never had an L, lost Lavalliere, but I felt like I was part of that. If we get the L, I was part of that. And I think I came across to my pitching staffs like they knew that. And that's where, building that, that kind of trust, was a huge, huge thing.
How about your relationship with Bob Walk?
Yeah, and I want to talk about the call from the booth.
Explain, because Walkie loves to tell the story.
So I've got more Walkie stories.
I'm sure.
We are here to hear them.
Yeah. So back in '89, whenever I was hurt, I used to sit up on the 4th level and maybe drink beer and eat hot dogs.
Nothing confirmed. Nothing
just,
confirmed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Cannot confirm
Maybe.
nor deny.
Yeah.
But I told Walkie, I says, it's amazing because you sit up there, you see the whole field, from up there. What a great vantage point. I says, Walkie, if you ever get stuck, look up there, right? Just look up there. So Kevin Mitchell's up at the plate and Walkie throws him a curveball. He hits it 9 miles foul at Three Rivers, right? And so Walkie's on the mound and he's like this. And there's like the light bulb went off. And he looks up.
He remembers. Wait a minute, Spanky's up there.
I about fall out of the booth. I'm yelling, hook him again. Hook him again. He hooks him again. He pops it up. Walkie walks off and tips his cap.
That is the greatest thing of all time, man.
Yeah. So I guess
you can just see him. He realizes he's all bummed out, doesn't know what to do. He's what am I going to throw? But he realized, Lavalliere's up there, Spanky.
Could you imagine him just going?
Yeah,
like just.
It was exactly like that.
Oh
His
my
head
gosh,
was
that's
down,
the greatest story.
and you could see,
the wheels are spinning.
Because when Walkie thought a lot, smoke came out of his ears, so it was smoking. And
that still happens.
And I'm going, oh my God, I can help him here. I know I can. And just like that, he looked up, and I just I may have spilled a hot dog up there, but I about fell out. And whenever he did it,
hook him again.
And, oh my God, it was one of the greatest moments.
That's so tremendous.
It was so much fun.
And he leaves, tips his cap.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a blast, man! I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
so much fun.
That's
really
only
Spanky.
one of many Whirlybird stories.
Whirlybird.
We have to have another show with Spanky just talking Whirlybird.
I'll get me and Walkie
and Drebeck.
Oh yeah, we get it. And Drebeck. That's what we got to do.
Yeah, him and Drebeck at fantasy camp are like two legends walking around.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
they're
what we're
still
do.
going out.
When Walkie comes down, we got to get you back toward the end of spring. As he's going to be coming back the last week, we got to have you down, and you two just spin tails.
Well, I'll check my social schedule. And,
yeah, you might be. You're traveling around the world these days. You are a world traveler.
Yeah, well, you know what? Not getting any younger.
Yeah,
yeah. So
welcome to the club.
If I don't go now,
understand.
You know what? The wheelchairs just don't go really good on the beach. So I enjoy while I can.
Spanky, you said when you sat down here with us, as so many people have said, your favorite podcast, and you are a podcast aficionado. One of the first things he said was, "My favorite podcast is." Hold my.
He was going like this,
especially catchers.
He was going,
catchers and pitchers.
Hold my cutter.
They love hold my cutter.
You know, so I got to show up. I got stogies. I got the torch.
We got the catchers. Yeah, you set this up. The set. Yeah. You set the setup.
I mean,
you got anesthesia.
This podcast was made for me and you.
Best cutter you ever caught, real quick.
Alex Fernandez.
Oh, nice.
It actually had noise. It screeched.
It noise.
It had noise.
It was devastating. But the best one I've seen was Mariano.
Yeah.
Because we get a report, right? And this is his rookie year. And he comes up in September. And at the time he was starting, right? And so we get the report, sinker slider guy. All right. So Tim Raines, first at bat, comes back. He's got about 8 inches of his handle left after he snaps.
It's now a pencil.
Right. Joey Cora's up next. He's got less of a bat left. And Joey being the fired up little guy.
Yeah.
And he goes, sinker slider, my ass. this guy's got a cutter from hell. Right? Tell that scout that he needs a new job. But that was Alex Fernandez, stuff wise. I love Dougie. And Dougie had great stuff, but for pure 4 pitches, Alex was one of the best, and surprised that he never got a sigh.
Yeah. Well, heck, man, we're gonna give you an MVP for one of the top guests on Hold
Sure.
My Cutter.
Cheers.
Legend.
Yeah.
Fellas.
Of course. He's a
always,
catcher.
Always available.
Make sure, hey, Spanky always tells us, make sure you tell your viewers, your listeners, like and subscribe, and send the questions on
Anything.
anything to
To Spanky.
Spanky.
Yes, I'm single. Ladies out there.
There you go. That's called a
Yeah.
plug.
That's a plug. Go get Spanky.
Yeah, the plugs didn't take.
Hold my cutter.